Hello, thanks for being here today again for the Esoteric Moon Gathering. I'm Dottie Lamoureux, your host for this summit. And the summit is designed to give you some practical tools, knowledge, and perhaps some rituals to take with you in order to navigate the world, the new world that we're living in, from a place of inner knowing and trust. So today I'm really excited. I have Denise Dryden with me. And her talk is entitled Exploring Tools to Access, Normalize, and Apply Our Energy. Denise is an eclectic and highly skilled integrational woman who expands our perceptions of the energetic gifts of our intuitive, sensitive, and empathic skills within systems and organizations. Her skills are built on decades of observing and coaching family systems with a focus on generational energetic patterns and how to transform this energy into working relationship connections. Denise builds presence, collaboration, creativity, curiosity, and new perspectives in individuals and energy systems. She has tools for multi-dimensional assessment, practical embodiment strategies, and resonance intelligence ownership. She blends psychology, history, and education with solid metaphysical tools in order to break old forms of structure and allow the expansion of new ideas and ways to exist. Denise, welcome. So happy to have you here today.
Oh, Dottie, this is such a treasure. It's such a gift to be able to sit with you and talk. I hope we can get what we want to do in our slotted time, because I think you and I could talk for a long time.
We could. It's true.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. That was wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm really grateful to have your energy. I know that you're going to make a great impact on who sees this and watches this.
Thank you.
So I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about your background and how you access your own intuitive information and guidance.
Well, to start with, I want to lay the stage that I am a triple water sign. My sun and my moon are 3 degrees apart, and there are times when that never meant anything to me, and then there are times when I talk with astrologers. They say, you don't really know the difference between being out there and your subconscious. And I think, oh, that's probably true. And so I like this sort of deep diving in and out. And I had a cousin of mine, when I said, so, when his father passed, what's it like to be the new patriarch of the family? And he just looked at me and he kind of like shuddered and he said, you always just go like right to the core of something, don't you? And I go, oh, yeah, I guess so. So laying that foundation, I grew up in a family that was very engineer, accounting, sort of linear and non-emotional. And so there's this part of me that's sort of water and moves. And I thought, what's wrong with me? And then I knew that I could feel things and I could see things. And that the universe was always talking to me. And I've been called crazy for most of my life, right? As we know. Tripping. So part of this movement is that I went, left home at 18 and had a wonderful time learning who I was in this tiny little college of 1,200 students studying medieval and Renaissance history. And so I studied the break between medieval and when we kind of like stopped it and said, no, we need to break open this and we need to change and bring the light and the enlightenment in. And so, I went after the Reformation. I went after the end of the Catholic control. I went after the beginning of the Renaissance. I went after the way that light was birthed onto the planet. That's sort of an interesting thing that at 18, it just sort of guided me and got me there. And so, life goes on, and I taught public school for a little while. I am a coach and a teacher, so I'm always going to break things down in a real fundamental way and translate them into something that makes sense. The challenge is when you have really big concepts that people can't swallow or they don't know what to do, and I can sort of try to break it down into something that makes sense. this intuitive skill didn't really come forward in its full sort of presence until 2010, when I moved to Whitefish, Montana, deliberately to sort of get quiet, let the mountains talk to me, sort of, you know, I've raised 3 kids, I'm divorced, I'm like done working in corporate, and I just sort of sat there and went, I need a restart button, and started to play with tarot, which I have 3 tarot decks that have never said a word to me. Like, I can read the book and not understand them. And all of a sudden, you know, deck after deck wasn't talking, and then Osho Zen decided to just sort of jump up, and everything, the door just opened, and all of the symbols and meanings started to make sense to me. And I realized that the way that I bring information in is through 20th century media. Now it's 21st century media. So, like, you know, someone's talking and I get the Brady Bunch, or I get, you know, something from CSI, or I get something from 60 Minutes, and I'm like, okay. And I say that, and the person goes, and I go, okay, so now these stories, these visions in my head, this wild imagination is starting to make sense. So from 2010 to 2020 now, what I've been doing is looking at, how do you uncover these wisdoms that reside inside of us, and how do we gently nurture them forward? And each of us has this unique energy system that responds, you know, in its own unique way. We each have a planetary direction. We have our past lives. We have our generational pain and codes and patterning. And it's kind of like, how do you start to untwine or untangle this mess of all of these energies that are bundled up? And so as I've been peeling them back for myself, I've also been coaching parents who have teens and young adults who've struggled with alcohol or substance issues, who've struggled with school completion or school failure, or even refusal now. Most of them are really creative, and they're really fun little, you know, like energetic beings whose their parents don't know what to do with them. And so I'm sort of like the translator, like, let me introduce you to Junior. Now this little guy right here, this is who you think he is, but this is really who he is. And he's multidimensional, and it looks like ADHD, and it looks like, you know, and so we go through all of that. And so as I've been normalizing these terms, normalizing this, what does it mean to be sensitive, empathic, energetically reactive? What's a pattern? What's a system that works, and how can you pick up a system and retrack it into a different direction? And that's been the work that I've been doing. So it's sort of like educator, psychology background, history, coach, survived 3 children who are grown and keep like letting me know, yeah, okay, Mom, you still have things to learn. I'm like, yeah, I know. And I've sort of stepped into my full witch, my full woo, and sort of said, get used to it, because this is the new normal.
I love it.
How's that for a long intro?
It's perfect. It's really perfect. I like, so would you say that tarot is one of your main ways to access your intuition then?
Tarot has always talked to me. Tarot, and then what I didn't know was that when I'm ungrounded, when I'm really overwhelmed, when I can feel my anxiety coming up, I go to nature. So I walk the beaches. I used to camp. I used to just sort of shut things down Friday afternoon and in 2 hours be in a tent next to a ponderosa tree where I could just breathe when I was in college. And I realized that nature also talks to me. So I watch the synchronicities. I watch the way the animals come up. I work with animal medicine cards first, used those for years, and then tarot started to talk. And now tarot's just, it's my most important vehicle, yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. I like too that you're working with teens and their parents. That must be really rewarding, and helping them understand they have that intuitive system too, right? To learn that early.
It's genetic.
So empowering.
Right? Yeah, it's genetic. It comes through the family system. Right. And so then it's sort of like reintroducing the parent to, what was your life like? And so in a lot of ways I'm reparenting, or I'm reframing the parent's life so that they can be more gentle and kind and sort of step away from the expectations that they learn to put on their children.
Mm-hmm. That leads into a really good question about the mystery school. Can you share with us what drew you to the mystery school and what you took away?
Well, I've been in 2 mystery schools. When I moved to Whitefish, I started with one that was sort of a closed system, and there wasn't a lot of room for someone new. They'd started on a track, and I hung out on the sides, taking any nibbles that I could get. And I worked with the teacher on a one-to-one coaching basis and sort of tried to apply my own little piece. And what I realized was that I respond really well to symbols and meaning. That it isn't that I need to know how to read an astrology chart or understand what the human energy system does or the meridians or why the chakras do what they do. It's mostly that I needed a vehicle to be able to apply things to. So I can crisscross, because I'm a collector, and then I'm imagine like a pack rat. I collect everything, and then when I need to know something, I spread it all out, and I can make up a pattern in any way that it shows itself to me. So whether I, collect information, data, and then spread some cards out and watch the thread, but once the thread's there, then I know what the pathway is. So Mystery School was really good at giving me symbols and vehicles and terms. When I moved here to the Seattle area, I had a really, really dear friend who was a woman that I had coached at one point, who was magnificent, like this young, fiery, ready to take on the world woman. And when she moved up here, she went to this mystery school, and I watched her and I thought, how did you do that? What skills are you using? And she told me about this mystery school. And so I came up here and I enrolled in it. And for 2 years, it was a deep dive into studying the phases of the moon, using tarot to understand how to read the phases of the moon, and how to put astrology and tarot together and blend them and let them feed each other, which was the only way that I could access astrology, because tarot spoke to me, but astrology didn't. And so then, weaving these symbols, understanding the historical context, understanding the planetary energies, sort of opened the door and gave me yet another whole bunch of vehicles to read, because I'm a reader and a scanner. So it was fascinating, at my age, to go in and try something new and become a student. And, I've got these huge notebooks, and they're all my resources that are around me at all times. And the pieces that came out of that was this concept of like using the moon phase, which I had been doing since I was, probably 16 or 17. If there was a full moon and it wasn't cloudy, I always checked to find out what time the moon rose, and I would get out there and sit and watch it come up. And I've been doing this for decades. So it's sort of like tying some pieces that had always been there together for me. So Mystery School just opened the door to accessing symbols, meaning, curiosity, and tools, esoteric tools that I haven't, that I've studied but not really understood, especially as a medieval student. There's so many layovers, right? It was beautiful. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it sounds beautiful. I love it. So you said that you've worked with the phases of the moon since you were about 16. And how do you use that information then to inform your life and stabilize?
Well, I've followed the full moon since I was 16. The phases of the moon, I didn't really ever understand the importance of the new moon. Mm-hmm. And so, coming into the impact of a clear slate and going through a 28-day cycle where you build, and then you release. It's almost like, what I always saw was like the big lighthouse, the big light beam, and you build up and you craft and you wonder, what the hell am I going to put out there this time? And then you go, and then you just let it go. And you go, well, I have no idea what that's going to do, but I'm just going to shine on the full moon. And then what I like is that, then it's like, well, how did that go? What would you do differently? What are the signs? How do you think that worked? And you sort of break it all down and bring it as it comes back into the balsamic moon. And then it goes into the new moon. So every 3.5, 4 days, I have a tarot spread that I do on the new moon. So I do the main, heart of the matter issue, and then what's crossing it, supporting it, or working against it, whatever, right? And then I do a card for each of the 8 phases. And I pull them all at once at the beginning of the month and lay them out, take a picture, and then start to journal as I go along. And Dottie, I am blown away with the fact that I can look at that and go, ooh, I think we're going to go here. I think this might happen. This is what I got to get ready for on the full moon. And then as each phase comes, I realize that's either spot on or it's a surprise. I had no idea that that's what that meant. Or, or there's just information which it leads to something else. And so I have my books. I do my intuitive readings first, and then I go to the books, because as a scanner, if I were to pick up a book and read it, words jump up. I can read the same exact description of a card 18 times, and each time it's like I'm reading it for the very first time. So the words jump up and I go, okay, so there's the message for today. And so I've been in this moon cycle for 2.5 years, every 3 to 4 days, working with the card, asking questions, letting it define, help, support me. And these moon phases are phenomenal. I also was born on the balsamic moon, so it really helps to know that at my core, I'm an integrational being, which means I'm going to disseminate, put it together, and break it down and put it into something that makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. And then as a teacher, I go like, break it down, pass it out, break it down, pass it out. And then the moon's like done, and then I sit back like at this Friday is our next new moon, and I'm thinking, I can hardly wait for this, right? So that's how I use those.
Okay. So on the new moon, then you pull 8 cards.
I pull 10.
10.
I pull a center card, like a regular tarot card. Here's the answer to the question. Here's what's crossing it, and then I start with the new moon and go down through the crescent, first quarter, gibbous, full moon, and I lay them all out, and then I just document them on a moon page that I have, and then what I do is just pull and sit with that heart of the matter, with those 2, and then say, so what's the influence of this moon right now? And why is this phase acting up, and what do you want me to know? And so then I have this conversation with myself, with me, myself, and I, all my little friends here, all my guides, and then we work on it. And there's the Bardo cards in there that are nasty ass things, and you go, oh, God, are you kidding me? Did you put 5 of these all down in a row? What are we going to do with that? Or, I've had a spread where I've never pulled a minor card. I was all major arcana, and I thought, oh, okay, here we go.
And what happened that month?
For me, it's been this constant stepping into the wisdom of myself that I've shirked, I've been afraid of, I've dodged, I've owned, I've thought I've owned it, then I've been humbled and learned a little bit more. And I realized that I have a language vibration that is unique on this planet, and that I need to talk with it, that it comes from someplace else. And it's vibrational, it's in my throat, it's in the construction of the palate on the roof of my mouth. And I just think, okay. And so I'm learning to lead in after wanting to lead for 55 years, I'm learning to lead gently. With presence. Yeah.
That sounds lovely.
The moon phase has been phenomenal at teaching me that.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. I like that. Leading gently. I love the word gentle lately.
Mm-hmm.
It's such
that's the nurturing energy of the feminine is it doesn't mean that we bend over and we forget. It means that we stand there and we hold, and then we continue to hold, and we continue to hold, and we stay right there with it. And right now seems to be the time that this is the most important leadership we can offer.
Mm-hmm. That is very true. Especially as we're navigating out of the patriarchy into the feminine, right, as one part of it, but also at least in the States, the systems are breaking down right before our very eyes, and being gentle is such a big part of that, which some people don't want to integrate yet. So
well, when this Saturn Pluto conjunction in Capricorn was forecast, I started working on it like 5 years ago, and then 4 years ago, and 3, and thought, this is really big. This has changed everything every time it comes. And then there's sort of like that 2012, there's all of the information coming in, right? And you think, how do we change everything all at once? What's it going to look like? Is it going to be, and I have my stories, a natural catastrophe, a major economic, and then I just let it go and said, whatever it is, we're going to be fine. And then watching everything just deteriorating and pulling out, and how every major institution on our planet globally is being challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, well, I couldn't have thought this up. Couldn't imagine that this was the direction we were going to go. And then watching who's comfortable with it and who isn't. And I noticed that all those energetic beings who've been working our magic through years are very comfortable with this, because we can trust it. It's those that have to let go of so many things that they're attached to that are going to really struggle. And that's where we stand and we go, it's going to be okay. Just put it down. Just put it down.
Yeah. It's a beautiful summation of how it is right now, as we sit in the present moment. Of course, by the time this airs, who knows? But yeah, right now, a lot of changes, and it is interesting to watch who's struggling with it and who is okay for the most part. It's just how it is. It's constant change. That's the planet we live on. I guess that would be a good lead-in then to Chiron.
Chiron. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about Chiron and his role in our lives, and pairing that with your experiences and energetic patterns and family systems?
Yes. So part of going to mystery school was learning the astrology, right? And Chiron wasn't even part of my awareness until a year and a half ago. And when we started studying the planets, and I just remember my teacher saying, and then Chiron's the wounded healer. And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. And it was like, Chiron. And I thought, oh, okay, so I better learn a little bit more about this planet. And so I've been, of course, the student, bringing it all in and realizing that as an asteroid or a cluster of asteroids that are very similar. Chiron is one of 5 or 6, and they all sort of showed up about 150 to 200 years ago, and they cluster in our galaxy, and they hold Saturn and Uranus. Chiron holds Saturn and Uranus together in partnership, and it weaves back and forth, and represents the wound that is the wounded healer, right? But represents the wound that sort of hits you at your gut level and brings you to your knees and stops you from being who you are. And that to me was really interesting, because I come from a long history of childhood trauma. I have a trauma energy that runs through my body. It's genetic. It comes from both sides of the family. And so there's that trauma vibration that I needed to go explore and find out. And because I work in the psychology environments or psychological therapeutic environments, I did a beta. I started to play with it and read. And then in mystery school, they laid out the Pythagorean number system of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 around the zodiac, and then laid in which sign represents. And so it was kind of like, what zodiac sign did Chiron come in? So it came for me in Aquarius. So I'm an Aquarian Chiron paying center, right? Which means it's expansive. And then it comes in through a house, and then it comes down to a specific cards. And so I started playing with it, and it was dead on. And I practiced with other people. And so I did a beta test on only therapists, and, you know, was really like helping them understand why they went into therapy, what their purpose was, and what their wound was. And it was glorious. It really helps understand. And so where I go with Chiron now is that the element that house holds, the element that the cards that represent that house, is where the energetic system gets shut down. So for me, it was in water. Of course it was in water. It's in my emotions. In others, it can be in their mind, in their mental collection, and the way that they tell stories and they bring things into form. For others, it could be in their fire, where they have all of this energy coming in and they have no idea, sort of fire hosing it. How big does it get? How small does it get? What happens when it's clogged? What happens when it's untethered and it just sparks all over the place? And how to work and manage that kind of energy. And it's like, you know, when we get to that physical plane, it's how do you embody? How do you really want to be walking on this earth? And so that helps me understand that the wound starts in one of those four elements, and the cards give me some ideas. And then I also laid over the tree of life. So I'm working with the Sephiras, and it's really interesting how it shows up in their hips or in their shoulders, or I can find out who's been dodging their channeling skills. You know, and I go like, hey, have you been getting some information? They're like, shh, I don't tell anybody about that. And I'm like, yeah, well, it comes right straight over your left shoulder and comes out. What are you going to do about that? So Chiron has been able to help me. And I think that that's the purpose, is Chiron sort of says, where do you want me to put this so that you have a clue when it's time for you to wake up and figure out how to break this pattern that shuts you down. So I've loved working with Chiron. It's one of my favorites.
Could you take me through a sample session?
Yeah. So I've already done myself, so I guess it's already out there. So if my Chiron placement is in my 8th house, right? So 8th house is about my romantic, the way that I give my energy to another person, the way that I connect, right? It's not marriage. It's not, you know, family sort of long-term. It's the way that I do that really small, intimate tribe, and who I trust and who I don't trust, right? And so that part is super, like I've got this really expanded Aquarian purpose, and I've got a mission and something to do, and my ability to choose someone that I can collaborate with who supports that is based on where my wound takes me. So my wound is in the 5, 6, 7 of cups, right? So I work with the, I started with the Osho Zen, but I've been working with the Thoth deck for the last 2.5 years, because that was the deck that they used at school. And it's like almost as if I can walk down that middle line of pleasure, of being completely who I am, or I can try to please and try to do something in order to get that to try to force that vibration to line up, and compromise myself to get that vibration to line up. Or I can go over on this side, which is when I get in that vibration and it's good, it's where that addiction strain, which is, this is good, but more's got to be better, right? So then I'm over there just milking it. And I've had someone say, you're kind of like an intimacy junkie. And I was like, actually, I just like that connection piece. And so there's this piece. And so of course I was born into a family that doesn't understand emotional connection. And so these pieces, these wounds were shown. And so you walk through how to understand, oh, I just need connection with healthy people. And those people may not be my biological or my my inner circle, that I have to find that connection within myself first, and then trust that, and then share that on a very, deliberate level, because it's water, it's soft, it's going to move with me, with somebody else. And so the 8th house, so it goes Aquarius, 8th house, 5, 6, 7 of cups. And so when I can pull those, you just lay them out, and for days you can sit there and go, oh, well, then it means this. And you go, yeah. Then you walk away, and you come back, and you find another way. And so the cards help, whether it's the numbers, which is the willpower, right? Tippereth, the solar plexus, and Netzach, which is the left hip. So it's how it's, so this is the cross. This is where it comes from me. It comes from my right shoulder down through my solar plexus to my left hip. So I can place them on the tree. I can place them in the energy systems. I can look at how the chakras open up, what blocks them, how to keep that center column open. So Chiron gives me so much information about somebody. So I usually ask for a birth date when I do coaching now, just to kind of squirrel away those details and use them unless they want them.
That's genius.
Well, it's just, thank you. I just it's all there once I start asking questions.
Sure.
Start digging.
And you said earlier that it might be for some people that they need to start developing that relationship with themselves and become more authentic in their understanding of their truth. How would you then guide somebody into that process?
I'm really practical, and I can take the big esoteric concepts and just sort of say, oh, yeah, so you try to get love from people who don't give you love. Okay. So I normalize it. And then what we do is I imagine, like, whether it's a plumbing or a railroad track or a highway, something that they can visually see, like, this is the pattern and this is how deeply embedded it is. Go to that person, hit them, wait for the ping, you don't get the ping, and it does, and you go, and you sag. So you keep trying to go to that dead end and thinking, if I just do something else, it will change. So what if we release that pattern and pick it up and put it in a different direction? All of a sudden, all the energy just starts going. So what we do is we transform that pattern. We pick it up, look at it, and place it into a different direction. So when I do that with parents, it's like, yeah, if your main issue is grades and your kid doesn't like school, you don't have an ability to establish how to love this child. They can't do traditional school. You have valued education your entire life, and this is not working. How do we pick it up and move it over and find something else about your daughter or your son that is magnificent, that you can get behind and love, and stop pushing on the one area that they resist with you? And then, so we just pick it up and we move it over, and all of a sudden it's transformed, and they're like, I had no idea how good he was in music. And I'm like, everybody in this entire program thinks your son is great at music. Everybody in this entire program goes to your daughter for intuitive wisdom. If you can accept that she's an empath and that she reads you and the family all the time, and you're fighting and you're arguing and you're bickering and you're micromanaging is painful for her, how do we change that? So we just pick the system up and we move it. So it's very practical, and I just bypass in some ways the long therapeutic unpacking and go, so that exists, let's move it over.
I like that. That seems very doable.
Much more doable.
Yeah.
Much more doable. And as you know, with Reiki, you can play with energy. So when we use exercises where we bring something in and we have them hold it and then use their imagination or their intuition and describe it. And then we put it aside and we create something new, and then we blend them. Their whole system goes and realigns, and it's over. It's done. They've set themselves on a new path. It's instant transformation from an old pattern.
It's incredible. I wish you would have been around when I was a teenager with my parents.
I wish I was around when I was a teenager, because It was not, it was a very, very shut down, you know, like I was an athlete. I was a cheerleader. I worked, I did everything to keep busy because it was just too hard to be open.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, so we all needed somebody like this.
Yes.
When we were teenagers, and when we're raising young children, and when we're trying to figure out how to navigate through marriage, which is challenging, you know, all of this.
Yeah. Yes, being a human on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Can be very challenging. So as a scanner and reader of energy, you have put some information out there about new Earth energies and when they arrived and what their purpose is. Can you tell me more about that? Fascinating.
It's fascinating information. You know, I've always had that sort of concept of indigo thrown around. And so I wanted to go find out what indigo really meant. And so I went through every book. I've looked it up. It's really hard to find a succinct definition of what an indigo is and why we use that and what it means. So I have this channel that I've used since 2010, who's like the big guns channel. Like she's the one that I go to when I go, I've got research to do. And so she'll set aside, she knows that she has to talk to me in the morning. We work directly with the Ascended Masters. The first time Metatron came in, I was like, hi, Professor, I haven't seen you in years. And we were just talking. And so I have this team through her that talk with me. And so I was like, tell me what an indigo is. And it was like, choom, I got it. And I go, oh, that's really cool. Well, that's not who my children are. So who are the next one? Is that crystals? And they're like, choom, boom. So they started defining for me so I could put this into practical form. So what we have is a timeline from the late 70s, from like 70, 75, 76, 77, all the way through till right now, which was an intentional seeding on our planet of energies that came in sequentially. Now, that means in mass. That doesn't mean only. That means that, like, you know, the indigo wise teachers that were born in the 50s and 60s are going to come in and make room for the ones coming in for the 70s. It's like there's scouts, there's educators, there's the ones that lay the groundwork. And throughout history, there's been different energies that have come in small select groups that have sort of helped things move along. So this intention of having this energy come in is super interesting because the indigo energy, the blue violet, is truth and justice. So what we know is that you pair that with the next geners and you've got the Breakfast Club unfolding in front of you. You've got rebellion. We've got the fuck no, that's not happening. We've got the pointing the finger at the teacher, at the business, at the parents, at everything. Marriages have fallen apart. We see divorce for the first time. We've got kids who are latchkey, who are loners, taking care of themselves, who are making this world happen and know that truth has to prevail. So they've been culling through. I call them like the first boots on the ground. They're the ones who got on here and said, we have to make sure that truth starts to happen here. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Mental, love to collect data. They hold swords in their hands and they take that mental, they stab, they slice, they break apart anything that doesn't stand in truth. And so they're like these little rebels and they're warriors and they're intellectual and they're fact gatherers. So I am a quintessential indigo. I'm like the collector of data. So in 88, 89, 90, the crystalline energy came in and all of us looked at these little beautiful pod children and went like, yeah, who are you? Because they vibrate. They hum like bees. And they gather together around people they like. If they don't like you, they isolate and they don't have anything to do with you. And they only know how to go towards what they love, what makes them feel good. So someone says, you need to go get a job. And they go, why? That place sucks. And the parents are like, you're so lazy. And you're like, no, you don't understand. They're mean human beings. It's dirty back there and they lie to their customers. Why would I go there? And so our ability from the parent side or the cultural side to say, just shut up and do it, They're like, I can't do that. And so they've been, I call them the pod kids because they've gone through preschool, nursery school, soccer's, after school clubs. Everything they do is in groups, and they get really used to the way that they vibrate together. So when they go away to school, or high school through college, they live together. When they get out of school, they move in together. When they have kids, they share houses together. I mean, this is just like and what they do is creative, and it's amazing. And I call them the holders. They kind of came in and sort of flopped out and said, we got this. And so they just held for us. And if you look at it on an academic or psychological side, this is when we started to see things like real different ways of learning. That's when they called them Asperger's. That's when they started really identifying the autistic spectrum, kiddo. This is when they started looking at depression and video game addiction and all of this stuff that these kids need to just keep that vibration going, who are now 30, 35 years old. And this is how they work. So that they're the holders. Then 2000, the rainbow kids came in. And rainbow, right at the beginning of the millennial, and it was very short, like 5, 6, 7 years of blenders. The rainbows are the ones who came in and said, I don't know what you're talking about. You said that she's black, or you say she's white. Yeah, she's human. She's got a great heart. I don't know what you're talking about. So they can't see the definitions and the differences because they don't, it's not in their programming to separate. It's in their programming to blend. And so they blend race, they blend sex, gender, they blend skill sets. They're the ones who do hack schooling. They make shit up the way they want it to be, and they blend it the way that they need. And so they're just simply saying, you and you crisscross, you and you crisscross. And so they're teaching us how to get away from polarity. And at great risk to each of these kids. I mean, if you go to the Indigos, how many of us have been put on medications or sent to military schools, or shut down because we are truth seers? How many of the millennials that are seated with crystals are taking the brunt of being called useless because they don't adhere to what culture wants them? And then you have rainbows who are openly different and ready to keep sacrificing themselves over and over again to show that blending is possible, blending is possible, blending is possible. Okay, and we learn, like the indigo, the crystal, and the rainbow, we morph into these as they come along. So for me, I started as a rock solid indigo, but I also now hold the vibration of the crystal, and as a mother and teacher, I've been blending and learning how to just sort of sit back and go, well, that's cool, and let go of the definition. All of this was so that by 2010, we could begin to hold the vibration of the diamond energy on this planet. And the diamond energy is unconditional love, pure compassion, and that's a hard energy to be held on this planet when there's so much human enslavement, hate, prejudice. And so, that diamond energy for hundreds and thousands of years couldn't come on this planet until we were ready. So these new earth energies have been just sort of setting the way and getting it going. So now here we are. We've got kids that have been here for 10 years. They're little Buddhas, and they're holding this energy of love and compassion. And we're aligning with them, and life is getting much more peaceful because they're here, because we were able to create a place for them to be here. So when we look at education systems and work systems and look at it from a historical or an energetic, you can tell that we've been on a trajectory that's been getting us ready for this for a long time. And that each of us came in with these purposes.
Yeah. Do you think that the diamond energy will sustain itself eventually?
Oh, of course. I think it's, and now, of course, I've got starting to get my questions together, which is what's next? Because I've been so focused. I mean, I started all this in 2015. So the diamonds were only 5 years old at that time. And the concept that there could be another group coming behind them, what would they be like? You know, what are they really paving the way for? So if we can hold in unconditional love, and we can blend, and we can understand vibrational energetic languaging, and we can hold for the truth, I think right now all of that are the 4 skills that are the most needed to navigate through this global control issue. Because as we break the control and we open up and we start moving away from the devaluing the human energy and spirit, we're going to need that diamond energy to hold us. And so it means that everything can change.
What would be one of the number one tools you would suggest for people to use to know and trust themselves to use that energy to hold the diamond?
Yeah.
Base.
You know, it's a triangle that I learned in mystery school to have as one of the first things, and it's always stuck with me, is that it's love, compassion, and forgiveness, right? And if you find that there's these pieces that are not working, if you can't hold love in your body, there's this ability to detest things, to actually make them wrong. So when we catch that energy, the lesson is to go to love. When we are trying to hold compassion and we find judgment, which is separation, filling in the details, making things right or wrong, you know, judging them for how they fit or don't fit, we don't have compassion. And when we have forgiveness and the lack of forgiveness, we have that ability to hold on to something and refuse to let it go, to relent. And so as we can relent and release, we can forgive. As we can let go of judgment, we can hold compassion. And as we can start to stop making things right or wrong or good or bad, we can step into love. And so those tools, understanding, where does judgment, why do you think that you can be bitter when love is absent? Why do you think you can hold on to a grudge and not forgive? These are the things that keep us stuck in old paradigms and old thought patterns. And we're seeing that right now, which is, you know, there's still people who are thinking that there's a 2-party system in the United States. There are still people that think that leaders are good or bad. And there are still people who think that neighbors are right or wrong if they wear masks or don't wear masks. And so there's these pieces that are bringing up all 3 of those constantly that we get to decide how are we going to deal with those. So tools, very specific tools, go after, once we know what it is, it's like, okay, so we have a forgiveness issue, or we have a lack of compassion, or we have the inability to really access self-love. Then there's tools that we can apply towards that.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you talk a little bit about your free gift, what you're offering viewers?
I always do a weekly video. It has been my gift to the world. Is I turn on Facebook Live on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock and I go, hi, this is the lesson for today. This is what I've scanned. This is what I noticed. This is what's going on. And it's anywhere between 11 minutes, and lately it's been hanging out about 17 or 18 minutes. So it's, you know, so it's short. And I've been doing these for 4 years. So I have 200 videos, over 200. I've got 260 something at this point. It's coming up on 4 years in June. So I have these videos, right? And these videos have been, they're targeted. if you're a parent, if you want to know about sensitivity, if you want to know how to build your, identify yourself as an empath, if you want to know why ADHD shows up, if you want to know how to do self-love and self-care, if you want to know what a snow globe concept is, which is this is me in here and nobody can, I'm sovereign and nobody can come in. These are all on the videos that I've been putting out. I've got a whole 62 followers in that many years. And I think it's okay, because I have it on YouTube, and now they're just starting to be discovered. And so that's my greatest gift, is that I have this library of wisdom you can go through, build it 1 week at a time, or you can go in after a specific title that catches it. But I'm as an integrational coach, but also an entrainer. It means that as I'm presenting something, that vibration is there. And so it's going to pass over into you, and you're going to hold that vibration of that lesson. So to me, that's the greatest gift I can give anyone, is access to those videos.
A wonderful gift.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to say or talk about, where people can find your work and find you?
Thank you. I have a coaching page. It's called DeniseDrydenCoaching.com. I have a YouTube channel. I have a LinkedIn channel, and I do Facebook. Facebook, Denise Dryden Integrational Wisdom, and that's where I put everything. If there's a place where I can just freely write what's going on, what I'm thinking, I go to my Facebook page. And so those are ways to get a hold of me. And I do very selective one-on-one coaching with those who are awakening, and kind of like their heads are up and they're like, I need to talk to someone about what I'm seeing or feeling right now. I'm like, hi, how you doing? So that's you over there. Come on over here. Let's talk, and let's like flush some stuff out and break some old patterns and get you going. But thank you for this. This has been wonderful, Dottie, just to be able to talk like this so freely.
Thank you. I love all the wisdom you shared. Is very valuable. I learned a lot from you, and I'm super grateful that we got to spend this time together.
Me too.
Thank you, Denise. And thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you learned a lot, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.